So hey, welcome back, and if it's your first time here, just welcome. Today you've joined me on an assignment for English Heritage, who look after all the ancient monuments in the UK. I've also, as you'll be able to see now, got a little new toy with me. This is the Feiyu Scorp Mini. It's a new gimbal designed for anything from a small mirrorless camera down to, you can even use it with a mobile phone. Now at the moment it's set in selfie mode, which as you can see works quite well. Although holding two cameras is a bit of a pain. But I'm just on my way down to an ancient castle. So this is St Catherine's Castle. As you can see behind me, that's the town of Feiyu. And then we come in to the main gun emplacement of the castle, which house the guns. So I'm not going to show you how to balance the gimbal because the instructions are fairly good, and although it's quite sensitive and you've got to get it absolutely spot on right, it is fairly straightforward. So what will show you though is how the thing actually goes together. Now there is a quick release plate which I find really useful. That slots into the actual film plate. Now, as you can see, I've got this locked off. So you've got a quick release plate that you can do up. Then you've got the cable, and it comes with the various different cables for various different cameras. And you can plug that into the USB-C socket, which says camera, a little camera symbol. Then you've got a little adjustment here that you can move the camera in and out of depending on how wide your camera is, so you don't end up bashing the side mount thing there. And then, now this won't be balanced because the surface isn't level, but you can then unlock the various locks, and as you can see it's going to spin around because the thing isn't level, but you can see it's pretty well balanced there. And actually it will, if I turn that on, it will level the camera up, although you probably find that when you start moving it around you'll get a bit of shake unless it's absolutely bang on. So as you can see, I've got my Sony a6300 on there, but it's perfect for a6400, 6500s, all those sorts of medium mirrorless cameras, and then it works with a GoPro or any other action camera, and there's even a phone attachment that you can add to put your phone on if that's the sort of thing you're after. Now the thing itself is nice and light. It's got this little handle here for you to hold it, and it's got a number of function buttons on there which I'll run through in a second. Now Feiyu have launched this thing this week. They sent me this a couple of weeks ago to get to know it and do a review for them. I haven't bought it, but they haven't paid me to do this. They've just sent it to me because I did a G6 review a couple of years ago. So I've been playing around with it for the last couple of weeks, and I really like it. Now they've done something unusual in that they're not just putting it out for sale, they're putting it onto a Kickstarter, and I'll put that in a link to that in the description box down below. So let's just have a look at the actual gimbal itself. As you can see, it's got various function buttons, and it's actually got, if that will stay there, a little touchscreen LCD with different modes on it. You've got a motor control where you can control each of the power of the motors. You've got the different motors there, so you've got the pan axis, the tilt axis and the roll axis that you can either set manually or you can do an auto tune. Now this isn't on a particularly stable or flat surface, so it's probably going to mess it up. And in fact I can feel that vibrating, so what I'll do is I'll put these back to what they were. And that can be on 10. Now I worked this out when I was in my office at home. Now stopped vibrating, so it's the tilt axis that was actually making the main problem. which is probably because this isn't the most stablest of platforms. Right, so that's what it came up with when I was at home. It's got a different mode button for different ways the gimbal will work. So you've got PTF, which means that the gimbal will move in all directions. PF, which will mean it will pan and follow. You've got lock, which will lock onto your subject and you can move the gimbal around and it will stay locked in. You've got FPV and FFW. Now you've also got different scenarios. So you've got time-lapse, auto rotation, panorama, portrait mode, selfie mode, and track video. Now what this also does, if I bring you around here, you can see that I've got it plugged into the camera, and then if I bring it round to here, it's plugged in to the actual gimbal. So these modes here, you can actually set it so the gimbal will actually control the camera. So you can do time-lapse, auto rotation, panorama, portrait mode, selfie mode I just showed you when I first started. So we just pop it into selfie mode, and as you can see, the camera rotates so you can film yourself, and then take it out of selfie mode and it goes back into whatever setting you had it in. Now then you've got the follow speed that you can set. I have it on medium. So let me just show you how a few of these modes work. And as you can see, the handhold is really good. I'm just going upstairs. Now obviously you've got to do your little ninja walk, so I can actually use it one-handed. Now obviously it would be a lot better if I'd got both hands on it, but then you wouldn't be able to see me using it. We're going to go to the highest point. I'll put the footage that I'm taking on both cameras next to each other, and that is how steady that is. So as you can see, I could use that with one hand because it's exceptionally light. Even with my Zeiss lens on, which is quite a heavy lens, and the camera body, which is, I mean, it gets a little bit heavy as you're using it throughout the day, but this thing weighs so little because it hasn't got metal feet. As you can see, it's got quite a good honeycomb infrastructure in it, so it should be okay. It does feel quite solid, even though it is very light. This is all plastic, but it does feel quite sturdy and really well made. You've got a wheel here to do some fine adjustments, and as you can see at the moment it's on the tilt, but you can change that using this button, and as you can see that will go up and down, and then you press that again and it goes from side to side. Now if you mess it all up, there's this little button at the front here, little trigger that you double press, and that brings it back to center. As well as these four main modes, you've also can scroll up and you've got the different controls for what that front knob is for. So at the moment it's on pan, you can put it onto tilt, you can put it onto roll, do the settings, so you've got dampness, speed and smooth, so you can really finely adjust that. So I'm going to use my glasses for this because my eyes are old, but I'm going to set a scenario where I'll have the gimbal set up on the step here, and then I'm going to track the video so it moves around and follows me as I walk and talk to the camera. So I hit scenario, track video, and then I can set my first waypoint, move that into position. Now I'm going to give that a 10-second delay, which allows me to get into position. Swipe over and I can confirm that. Set position 2 and I can pan around and I'll roughly point it at that other spigot over there, and we'll do that for another 10 seconds. So I've got 10 seconds of walking and I can confirm that. That'll start recording and it'll stay in the position that it's in for 10 seconds, and then when I see it start to move, I can then start to move to my piece to camera, or you, and as the camera then moves around and tracks around, I can then stop where the camera's positioned. I can still do my piece to camera, and then I'll hear when it's finished that the actual gimbal turns the camera's recording off, just like that. And so we're done. Now this time I've actually got it so it does a reveal as I walk into the castle. So I really like that mode because it allows me to get on with my photography while the camera and the gimbal work together to get a much more dynamic shot than I would have ordinarily have got. So another useful mode is, as you can see, a portrait format mode. So if you're filming for Instagram stories or TikTok or any of those other things that you young people like, and you can actually use it to film yourself in portrait mode, and then you don't have to worry about having to crop it in post and losing quality. You can make sure that what you want in the frame is actually in the frame. The only thing you can't do really is film yourself in this mode, because the gimbal won't actually allow the camera to be in portrait mode when the tripod is out and the camera and the gimbal set down. So that's a bit of a disadvantage, but on the whole that's quite a good little mode for modern day shooting. So I guess the question is, do I like this gimbal? And the answer is a categorical yes. It's got everything I need. Now, as you can see, my video kit is very small and lightweight, which is deliberate because I don't want to be carrying tons of kit around. I do enough of that with my underwater stuff. So it's got to be lightweight, which this is. It's got to be sturdy. The tripod I was a little bit worried about, but it seems to be really well made, even though it is plastic, but it's nice and reinforced and strong, lightweight. It's got good modes. It's got easy use. I love this little handle at the back. The touchscreen is really responsive and it does tell you which way you should be swiping. You just got to have your glasses on to be able to see that, if you're me. It's got photography modes should I want to use this for time lapses or panoramas, anything like that. It will automatically move, as I've shown you, so you can film yourself and have it a little bit more dynamic rather than just something sat on a tripod. It's got all the modes that you'd want of a gimbal at the moment, but there are a few little niggles. The balancing, because it's quite a small gimbal, this is probably one of the larger payloads you'd put on it, but the balancing is very, very critical. You need to get that balance absolutely spot on, otherwise the motors start to hum and it really struggles. It's not quite as strong as my other ones, but the balancing is quite simple. The other thing I like, now I'll turn this off and I'll show you. So it's gone off. It's got these little lock systems, so you can lock it into place. Now this is very similar to that new DJI gimbal. The thing this doesn't have is automatic lock and automatic unlock, but that's fine because you start putting more servos or more little motors in to move these switches up and down. That adds to the weight, that adds to things that will break, and I don't really like that. If it's on and it's locked, it goes into sleep mode. So it can still be on, but you won't get the motors won't be trying to work to get the camera balanced when it can't move because of the lock's in place. So that's a good thing. You can then carry it around all nice and easy and it's not going to go anywhere. Simple. So as I said, what I'm going to do is I will put the link to the Kickstarter in the description box down below. I hope you really enjoyed this video as much as I really enjoy using this gimbal. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.